The social acceptance of the theory of evolution ushered in a totally new way of looking at life on Earth, and especially humankind's place in the cosmos.
It took the theory of natural selection, the survival of the fittest, and it applied it to human beings.
Now, when evolution came along and Darwin proposed the theory, it was pounced upon with alacrity, not by the scientists, but by the social sciences and by the liberal arts.
But there were also many critics of Darwin's theory. Among the most forceful critics was his Cambridge professor, who warned that there would be a great cost to humanity for not acknowledging the Genesis account of creation.
Humanity, in my mind, would suffer a damage that might brutalize it and sink the human race into a lower grade of degradation than any into which it has fallen. Adam Sedgwick.
History has borne out Sedgwick's skepticism as devastating consequences have come to pass when the theory of evolution is applied to society, economics, and government. This is known as social Darwinism and has been used as a justification for imperialism, labor abuses, racism, eugenics, and social inequality.
Darwinism really had three big impacts on our society and culture. First of all, Darwin and his theory proposes that we're the product of this unguided blind process, and that undercut the idea that God exists.
When Darwin came out, then atheism went through the roof. I mean, it was trending high, and it's been trending high ever since, because Darwin made the proclamation, look, there is no God. Evolution, this is how we got here.
Well, there are many atheists themselves who admit that Darwinism had a key role in their conversion to atheism. When Darwin first published his theory, in fact, there were people who had already embraced an atheistic position, but they were just delighted when they read Darwin because they said it reinforced their ideas and it showed that, their ideas made sense. In fact, he also at one point even tried to provide an explanation for the origin of religion. He claims that religion is based on fear of unknown processes like thunder and lightning and volcanoes and things like that.
The second impact was its impact on morality, because Darwin thought that morality was just the product of this survival of the fittest process.
Darwin, in his Descent of Man, spends a lot of time talking about the evolution of morality. He thinks it came from social instincts and that it evolved because those that had those social instincts would be have more solidarity so that they could win battles against their fellow tribes and races. The irony here is that he thinks that morality increases as people supplant or actually exterminate other people who have lower levels of morality. Darwin thought that different races were at different moral levels. So what this means is that there's no fixed moral code, there's no objective morality out there. So in that sense, it does breed chaos because it's whatever your instinct tells you, go for it.
There is such a thing as right and wrong. Now, animals don't necessarily know that there's a difference between right and wrong. But you can go to the deepest, darkest jungle of Borneo where no one has ever seen a missionary or knows anything about the Ten Commandments, and the thief will wait until dark when nobody can see him to go steal. Why did he do that? Because he knows it's wrong. He knows that in his heart.
If you believe in evolution, there is no reason not to do whatever feels good. There's no reason to think of other people.
If they want to hurt one another, abuse one another, enslave one another, they can do that. And there's no philosophical reason for not doing it.
Hitler's instincts have just as much validity as the instincts of someone who says, no, we should love our neighbor as ourselves. There's no way to judge between those two moral views in the Darwinian vision of things.
Even non-believers realize there ought to be justice and fairness, but you don't get that from Darwinian theory. The worldview, the evolutionary worldview, is morally, spiritually bankrupt.
Darwin is one of the pillars of the modern idea of relativism. And then the third big impact that Darwinism has had on our society and culture is undercutting the value of human beings. And so that really has played into, over the past century, the denial of human dignity and the undercutting of the uniqueness and specialness and worth of human beings.
Human beings, on a materialistic worldview, are not made in the image of God. We don't have intrinsic dignity. We are simply an accidental byproduct of an undirected process.
In Darwin's mind, there were some that were born that were not quite evolved.
Darwin considered races to be variations of human evolution, thereby establishing a racial hierarchy.
And some of the groups that he considered inferior would be anyone that was non-white, and that would include Australians, Mongolians, Polynesians, Eskimos, Africans. Just go down the list of everyone who was not white.
I've read a lot of Darwin. We've read him in school, but we never heard about the subtitle that says, this is for the preservation of most favored races. And you realize that Darwin is the taproot, literally, of white supremacy and racism in our modern context. Started with Darwin.
Darwin wasn't the first racist, but Darwin provided what seemed to be a credible scientific basis for racism, that natural selection makes us expect that races should be radically different and unequal. That had huge repercussions.
One of the worst repercussions was the justification of slavery.
Slavery was economic opportunism. In the mindset of a plantation owner, it was free labor. It wasn't like these people are subhuman until Darwin later in his writings declared it so. Darwin castigated blacks slightly above the parasite level. So in the mind of a slave owner who really doesn't make the connection, but he hears Darwin say, don't worry, these people are subhuman. And so that's how you were able to have a lot of these slave owners preach on Sunday and beat and do all kinds of horrible, heinous things to their slaves. Certainly, God's not going to hold me responsible for somebody that's not even involved yet, not even human.
Darwin claimed that within the human species there has to be competition in this struggle for existence. And so that competition can be done in a variety of ways. It can be economic competition.
For instance, the emergence of the so-called robber barons in America during the late 1800s and early 1900s. These enormously wealthy industrialists were said to have crushed competition, suppressed worker wages, and exploited labor, among other unethical practices. They were enthusiastic Darwinists and believed that it was all justified, simply Darwinian philosophy and practice. But the most profound implementation of Darwinian economics is Marxism.
Now you got to remember, Marx and Engels were Protestant, good Protestant boys, and believed in God. And then when they read Darwin, completely changed their life. And so they gave credence to Darwin for just changing their perspective completely, changed it upside down. And then they fully, embraced and made sure that they, basically inculcated all of Darwin's philosophies inside their own as they started to write and do and send out their social philosophies.
And horrible things have been done in the name of communism.
It's because the policies are absolutely informed by a materialistic worldview that sees people as machines and merely material entities that don't have a soul that needs to be treated carefully as a human being created in the image of God.
We have seen over the last 150 years how Darwinian beliefs have justified violently overtaking and devaluing other races and cultures.
One of the most potent impacts of Darwin today is in this anti-human movement of what I would say the sort of extreme environmentalists. They don't view human beings as just another animal in the forest. They view us as the aggressor and as the really bad guy. You have people like Sir David Attenborough who are similarly arguing that humans are a plague on the earth. We are outstripping the earth where it used to be that under survival of the fittest, Darwin's survival of the fittest would keep us in check. But now because we're kindly and loving and feeding people, that we're overrunning things.
Darwin's separation of human biology from the creation in the image of God has even affected such unforeseen areas as gender and sexuality. If everything is merely a cosmic accident and there's no design, then even the most basic things are up for grabs.
Can a 12-year-old know that they want to be the other sex? No, of course they can't. But if they're being confused about it, they might believe something that's completely irrational.
They maybe never even heard that there's a wonderful creator whose image and likeness can be reflected in them, and that there's a purpose for their lives.
What transgender activists say explicitly is that your body has nothing to do with your gender identity. It's essentially a way of saying your body is not part of your authentic self.
Parents need to be on guard and recognizing God knows what he's doing. If he made you a girl, he made you a girl. And if he made you a boy, he made you a boy. And, you know, when you really stop and think about it, if there weren't girls and boys, there wouldn't be a human race for very long, would there?
Social Darwinism, the application of Darwinian principles outside of biology, has given rise to theories and policies that have devalued humans and wreaked havoc on society.
This is the long-term fruit of Darwinian thought. This is the long-term fruit of cultural Marxism. This is the long-term fruit of denying the image of God in man, and it has created a world of utter and complete chaos.